Welcome to Barbell's Business and Boobs, where we discuss navigating everyday life as lifters, business owners, and being a woman in a male dominated industry. I'm Christy and
I'm Brittany Diamond.
and today we are debunking fitness myths. And these are a lot of myths that you guys have sent us, sent Brittany to her story box. So I'm really excited to get into it.
Yeah, so we've all heard a bunch, and Christy and I have been in the fitness industry for so long that I almost forget about some of these. We asked our audience, and we got a list of the most common ones. And I want to first start off with my two favorites, which are people say, I don't want to get too bulky, and I don't want to look manly.
Yeah. Okay. So I have so much experience with this because when I was a personal trainer in like regular commercial gyms, so I was powerlifting at the time, and no one was coming to me for powerlifting training. They still wanted to look weight, have the long and lean muscles, whatever that means. That's a fitness myth as well. I went long and lean muscles. Like, what does that even mean? Um, but I've also had people say, but I don't want to look like you. And I know you've heard that too, even recently.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's like, okay, lifting won't get you big and bulky, but you have to work really, 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 really hard to put on a lot of muscle. And it's definitely sometimes hard to convince people that it won't make you big and bulky, but it definitely won't. And it's not like you're going to be like, oh shit, I woke up and now I'm big and bulky. It's like you'll start to see yourself gain weight, gain muscle slowly over years. So you're in complete control over that.
Yeah, obviously there is a genetic component to it. Like some people put muscle on more easily than others. But if you look at Christy and I, like she said, we have both heard, I don't want to look like you. And you have to keep in mind, we're strong women. Christy had a powerlifting background. Christy and I've seen pictures of you. Her and I were both really skinny. We didn't have a lot of muscle, and we've been lifting with the intention, we lifted for our sport to be the strongest we could. So we have worked purposely to get big and strong. And it is not easy. It is much, much harder to put on muscle, especially being a female, than people realize. So now I'm a little more sarcastic with my answer to that. With people, when they say that, I say, actually, don't worry, you won't. Like, I purposely did this. It's a lot more work than people realize. And also, it's not like you're going to go lift for a month and all of a sudden put on 20 pounds of muscle. Like if you did feel like you were getting too big, quote unquote, you would be able to tailor your training. It's not just going to happen. It takes years.
Yeah, years and years and years. So when I first started lifting, I actually didn't get bulky. I got skinny because I was, well, barely eating. So I was kind of losing muscle, but and a lot of body fat. So I definitely wasn't big and bulky at all. So just lifting weights is not going to make you big and bulky. And ever since then, I've been working really hard to put on the muscle, like you said. So, and that was 10 years ago. So it's taken me 10 years to have this physique, and it's a lot of getting bigger and stronger and then cutting down and then getting bigger, stronger, and then cutting down. So there's so much that goes into it. And I know a lot of girls who've been lifting just as long, trying just as hard, are still really tiny. So it's just genetically, like you said, takes a big part in that. So you're not getting too bulky, especially overnight. And diet also has a big role in what your body does in it, like how it responds to the training, because you're going to build muscle, but also getting a lot of body fat because you're just eating Ben and Jerry's every night. Um, or are you being more mindful of having like better macros and stuff, all that fun stuff. So you won't wake up big and bulky at all.
Yeah. And I think what you just said about Ben and Jerry's leads me to my next point, which we both got. Carbs are bad.
Okay, so we kind of like giggle about these now, but I remember a lot of these I used to think, like especially when I first got into weight training and before I was a personal trainer, I would only eat, I would like barely eat any carbs at all. And so, and it's like, where did I get that information from? I don't even remember. But did you ever think carbs were bad?
I don't think so. So I was lucky in the sense that I did track when I was younger, and I always had good coaches we would do like pasta dinners. So this was in like 5th grade. I was starting to get educated on it. But I think, and this is where I feel I fall victim to sometimes thinking carbs are bad. Like, it's really easy if you use the scale. So if I were to cut carbs today, I would wake up probably about 3 or 4 pounds lighter tomorrow. So I think that's where the myth stems from, is are people like, oh my God, I lose weight if I don't eat carbs. And
Right.
that's
And
not true.
that's just from the water, right? Yeah.
Just the water.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So everyone listening, make sure you know that. Like, you could cut carbs today, you'd lose weight. You're not losing fat, you're losing
Hmm.
water weight. And after a couple of days of that, it would impact you negatively. Carbs are fuel. Think of it like, all food is fuel.
Hmm.
Think of carbs like that's the glycogen. That's what fuels when you're strength training or endurance or even using your brain burns a lot of glucose. So carbs
That's a good
are
point.
essential for
Yeah, that's a
everyone.
really good point. I tell my clients that all the time because they really, we do focus a lot of our carbs around training. Like I have an intro carb drink. I drink just to keep me fueled during my workouts. That's how important they are to me. But I also tell my clients too, it's what you eat, what you're eating. We're not just eating to train. Yet, like you said, like you need enough calories and nutrients to keep your hormones functioning, to keep your brain function well, to actually just like clean your house. Like there's so many things that, why you need energy, and carbs are just the purest form of that energy and the easiest for your body to use. So you do need them. Of course, with anything, moderation is key. We don't, like I said, it's not a quart of Ben and Jerry's every night. We want to be health conscious, but it's interesting too, because you'll see a lot of athletes carb load and they'll load in a lot of carbs, and that's for a reason. Doesn't mean that you should base your diet off of their diet, but just goes to show that carbs aren't bad.
Yeah, and certain individuals, especially when you first get into learning your body, learn how different foods, like certain individuals, if you're 21 years old and you run marathons, you're going to burn through those carbs quicker than someone that is sedentary all day and, just goes to a Pilates class. So it's different per person. Personally, I actually love this myth because I get really, really excited when I'm working with a female client who all of a sudden, like, they've had that notion in their head that carbs are bad, and I start giving them carbs, and then at first they're fearful, so it's a lot of hand holding, like, don't worry, I promise it's going to be okay. And then they see, like, wow, I actually have more energy, I'm not as hungry, I feel better. So it's exciting. Christy, you work with RP, so a lot of that is science based around carbs. Have you ever had like a success story where a client is no longer fearful of carbs?
Yeah, I mean that happens with a lot of my clients, and especially so. It's not even just with RP, which I do like RP because they do focus on like the around your workout nutrition, but with the carbs, when you get into powerlifting or strongman or something, people like love to like the culture is Sour Patch Kids and donuts, which I sometimes I kind of roll my eyes because sometimes I'm like, guys, you guys are chill on just that. You should eat some like real food. But also I like it because it suddenly breaks your just idea that those things are necessarily bad and that carbs are bad. So if you see your favorite powerlifting eating a few Sour Patch Kids or getting a burger on the weekend with a bun, you're not as fearful, and kind of breaks that because we have so much fear around certain foods, at least like I did growing up. And so for me, that was really freeing. So when I went from really, really skinny to not eating carbs to powerlifting, I started eating more carbs and I got stronger. I built more muscle. I think I went off the rails a little bit, but it at least broke that fear because I was in the culture of that. Like, it's more like, haha, like, do you want a Sour Patch Kids, for your meat, stuff like that. So it was saying like, oh yeah, you can eat candy. It's not going to kill you. So
Yeah, you raise a good
sure.
point too that I want to just quickly mention. I actually didn't get this myth at all when I asked the audience, but it just reminded me of the whole if it fits your macros. So I've heard a lot of people say like you can eat, whatever you want as long as it fits your macros. And I feel that it should be common sense, but it's not. That obviously there's a difference between, like, let's say you had 20 grams of carbs you're supposed to eat. There's obviously a difference between some oatmeal or a potato versus like a chocolate chip cookie. Like, yes, the chocolate chip cookie tastes better, but it's also not the best type of fuel. I'm not saying that you can't eat the cookie. Of course, once in a while, like it's fine. But just over time, just keep that if it fits your macros in mind, because, different macronutrients and micronutrients that are essential for your body to function at its best are important.
Yeah, and just the way things digest too, and how they affect your blood sugar is important. And I know that is also, for certain things for competing, sometimes it's good to spike your blood sugar and everything like that. But there's reasons why. But you definitely should not be afraid of carbs, and just think of them like any other macronutrient your body needs.
Yeah. All right. So the next myth is one of my favorites because it's something that my dad would actually tell me when I was younger. So don't eat past a certain time. So I remember my dad told me I had this ritual when I was young. I'd go to track practice early in the morning on Saturdays, run like 10 miles, come home, have a huge breakfast, and then I'd go back to bed. And he would tell me, you're going to get fat if you do that. And also don't eat really late because you're just going to bed. That's how you get fat. And I was like, whatever, Dad, I don't care. Like, so
Oh my
Christy,
God.
yeah. And you've heard that before, right? Don't eat past a certain time.
Yeah, I have. I actually was in a Facebook group a long time ago when I was starting to lose weight, and it was just a bunch of one of my girlfriends talking, and one was like, I don't eat past 8 or 7 p.m. or something, and I don't know why. Then I realized that was a thing at that point. Then I was like, maybe I shouldn't eat past 7 p.m. or something like that, which is ridiculous. Yeah, it's just interesting because like the same kind of thing. It's like you just heard that from someone, and like, where did your dad get that from? Like,
Yeah.
it's just we just hear these weird mythical things that like don't make sense, and we can spot them really easy now. When I see people like kind of like saying random stuff, I'm like, where did that even come from?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know.
Um, it all like, I've done the whole bodybuilding prep where you're eating 6 meals a day. And there were times when I was eating at like 10:30 p.m. at night right before bed.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely, the only thing to go back, the only thing that, don't eat past a certain time, if you have like a large heavy meal, it can maybe impact your ability to fall asleep because your body is trying to digest that, but it's not gonna affect your physique. At the end of the day, what matters most is calories in versus calories out. So you need to, there's obviously optimal ways to eat. Like I wouldn't say it's optimal to just have one meal a day, but some people, if that's like, let's say they're a surgeon and they can only do that, that's okay, but it's not going to make a difference. Your body doesn't know, only your mind knows whether you're having 3,000 calories spread out or 3,000 calories in 2 meals.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of preference and, what works for you. I would say your body likes homeostasis. Obviously, we are all busy, have different schedules. So it's ideal to try and eat your meals at the same time every day, but that's not always realistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
totally.
how about the one, you were an in-person trainer, so was I probably heard this every time. Women or men pointing to a specific area of their body, usually it's stomach or tricep, saying, I just want to lose here.
Yeah, and they always like jiggle their tricep. They're
Yeah,
like,
the jiggle.
this right
Yep.
here. Yeah, and I totally understand too, but they usually say, what exercise can I do to get rid of this? And you know what? I think Instagram has a bunch of really good information, but also I do see reels that are like, do this exercise to get rid of this. And it makes me so mad because although I think that more people know now that you can't spot fat loss or spot reduce, um, oh my God, like most of the world still don't know or understand that. And so it makes me mad. But no, when you lose fat, you're going to lose it throughout, your fat cells are all over your body. You're going to lose them for whatever you're storing them on your body. And it's just your cells shrinking, not going away. The only way you can like actually get rid of something in a specific area would be liposuction. You'd be removing the fat cells rather than just reducing shrinking them. So you are not you can't crunch your way into losing belly fat. You can't do tricep push downs. Probably look better because you'll get a little more muscle, but you just have to lose fat in general.
Yeah.
And then it'll come from there eventually, but also other places and probably your boobs. So have fun.
Yeah, that's also a pet peeve of mine that I didn't even think of. So I don't follow accounts on social media that, put out bad educational content, but that is definitely something that you can find, like, do this for triceps or do this for that area. And that's such a pet peeve. Like, we just did an episode on social media and we talked about how we try to, give valuable educational content. So unfortunately, we all wish it was. Spot fat loss is not a thing. And as a woman, if you think about why we're put here on earth, which is to reproduce, we're going to have, those areas like hips, stomach. That's where we're going to hold, generally more fat. So, you'll see one area. I like to do measurements with clients because you can see, where you lose it, but it's generally pretty balanced. Like, so if you start to diet, start to exercise, you're generally going to lose around the same rate. But of course, we're human. We're all going to have that one area. I know I have my insecurities about one area. Christy, I'm sure you do too,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, every woman in my family has like thicker thighs and hips, That's where we
Yeah.
store most of our fat. So just how it is, it's just the way your body's shaped and the way that you're blessed, I
Yeah.
guess. But yeah, you're gonna lose it. Not for a specific area. Unfortunately, there's no diet or certain exercise that's gonna make you do that. Doesn't mean you shouldn't exercise or strength train. That's definitely gonna add better shape because I know a lot of people who lose a lot of weight and then they're like, I don't like my body. It's not like buff and toned, it's not toned. It's like it's because you need to add the muscle. So
Yes.
you can specifically add muscle places, but because you're working those specific muscles, but you can't. You might actually try to spot reduce. You might actually just accidentally build muscle there.
Accidentally. I love that. All
Hmm.
right. So the next one I fell victim to when I was a teenager. Training abs gets you abs. I can look back and laugh now, but I did abs almost every day, I think, in middle school, like crunches, all that stuff. So, Christy, did you ever
Okay,
feel guilty?
no, I did the same thing, but it was like when I had like a little bit of undiagnosed anorexia where I
Okay.
like didn't eat, and then I also like for me what exercise was just abs. Like all I knew with exercise was abs, so I would do just like a bunch of sit ups, and because that was exercise me, it wasn't really for the purpose of gaining abs. Um, so yeah, but guess what? I do train core quite a lot. Not like someone would do if they're like in a fitness class doing a bunch of sit ups and Russian twists and stuff, but like planks, hanging leg raises, and obviously all like the strongman type core things we do. Um, I don't have abs. I never have it. I've never been lean enough to. But yeah, you must just have a lower body fat percentage to have abs. Plus, certain people's body types, the way their abs are shaped, can make them more pronounced as well when they're leaner.
So, yeah, we all have abs, just like we all hopefully have arms, you know. So, it's just one of those things. Sorry, that sounded wrong.
I know you caught yourself though.
Yeah, I know. So, again, you're not going to see them until you're lean enough. But with that being said, like abs and core, I want to use the term core in general, should be trained for an injury prevention standpoint. Lower back issues. A lot of times people will have a weak core, but training the compound movements, learning how to breathe through your diaphragm, all things like that. Like you can be, if you see those shredded people up on stage, I guarantee they might train abs maybe once in a while, but more of that is from doing like core work. So, stomach vacuums and compound movements, all of that. Anything you want to add
Exactly.
about that one?
Uh, no, but it does kind of make me remember the what people say a lot of times is like compound movements will make your core blocky. What do you think about that?
So, making your core blocky. So, I definitely think certain movements like deadlifts that accentuate the obliques happen.
Hmm.
So, I always thought that I was blocky. I have naturally big shoulders, and it wasn't until I dieted down that I realized, oh, I'm actually not. I just, like we talked about with fat loss, spotting fat loss, I just hold a lot of my my weight in my lower stomach, and it's also how I'm built. You know, my organs tend to protrude a little bit more. So yeah, I do. I think this leads into a point too that I forgot to mention: waist trainers.
That's a
Or,
really good one. That's
or
kind of what I was thinking about too, because I consider myself blocky as well, but I do a ton of obliques, like a ton of stuff that works my obliques. Just because I know that is so important for my back injury and just being strong in general. So I always thought it was that. But now that you say that, hey, you think you're blocky too, but you can have a six pack when you diet down, gives me hope. So,
yeah,
but I do see people with waist trainers like they are really, their waist is really small. But is that because the waist trainer is working, or is it because it kind of accentuates and squeezes them in for the moment? Because I've
yeah.
never worn a
So
waist trainer. I don't even know what they feel like.
yeah, I wore one once. I had a friend that swore by it for, physique and trying to make the waist appear smaller. So I wore it. And then I talked to a few people, and I think kind of like that mind muscle connection, like if you touch a muscle, you're able to feel it more. I think it's the same thing with waist training. It's going to make you more aware of your posture, but wearing an actual waist trainer, unless it's like, back in the day, they would wear like corsets super tight, unless you're physically like, which is not good for you. You can hurt your rib cage and lead to a whole host of other injuries. But I think it's just more of that awareness, kind of like wearing a belt when you're lifting and learning how to brace. It
Mm-hmm.
just helps cue your brain like how to properly brace and breathe. But
Yeah.
it's totally a myth when you see the girls. Like, this is one thing that I do often see. I'll see people put like sweet sweat or something on, and
I
then a waist
hate
trainer, and
that.
they're like, oh, I lost all the weight. It's like, no, you sweated. I could do the same. I could go wear a trash bag
I
just over my stomach area,
know.
go sit in the sauna, and guess what? I'm gonna sweat a lot. It's not making my waist smaller. It's just water weight I'm shedding. So
Exactly. As soon as you drink water after your workout, you're going to gain it back. So, do you need a waist trainer? No. Could it maybe help train you to suck in or, stand up straight?
okay, how about
I
this
don't
one?
know. Probably. Maybe. I
How about
guess.
this one?
What?
You must do a lot of steroids to look like that. I could never because I don't want to do steroids.
Oh, well, you could also never be like this. Just kidding. Oh my God. Yeah, I get that all the time. So let's say a woman posts, or like you post 315 for 20 squats. It is amazing. Like you're insane. Um, and someone's like, well, some dude's like, well, I could do that if I was roided out like that, because you've accomplished something like really crazy, or let's say you look just like phenomenal. Like people try to bring you down that way because they're mean, or they really do think that steroids are the thing that are going to do that for you. But it's like, no, like drink a protein shake and go to bed, bro. Like get rid of your vape pen and lift some fucking weights for 10 years. So
I love that. Put down the vape pen.
okay, that is my biggest pet peeve ever. There's people at my gym who vape between sets.
Oh my God, that just okay. Just so if you vape, just stop. That lowers testosterone. It's the opposite of what you want to do. Yeah, I hate that. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Anyway, but that's definitely not all of it. And of course, steroids can definitely make you stronger, enhance that, but a lot of people don't even know how. There's tons of naturally amazing, strong people who are like look amazing because they work really hard and they don't use steroids. So I don't know. I mean, if you just use steroids, maybe it can help a little bit, but not as much as you would think.
yeah. We'll go into this more in a future episode about steroids, but just that is a complete myth because the person that's usually saying that, like, they could take steroids, and if they didn't change anything, they're not going to do anything. Steroids help you recover. Steroids don't magically build muscle or give you the ability to lift heavier weights. It's everything you're also doing, and steroids are just a tool. Yeah, I absolutely hate that. That comment used to really, really make me so mad. Like, I feel like I had to defend myself when I was younger. I'll never forget. It first started happening to me in when I graduated college and started training, like strength training, going from rowing and running every day to actually strength training. Like, I was putting on muscle because I was competing and I was I was eating so much. I wish I could still eat that much. And that's when the comments, like on social media and in person, started being like, people would say things like, I noticed that your voice is changing, or I notice your jaw is changing. And I'm like, no, I don't do steroids. Like, I have a different opinion on steroids now than I did back then, because back then I thought steroids were equivalent to like heroin. So again, we'll go into that more, but it's just such a myth. Yeah, I hate that myth.
Well, there's also a myth that, maybe not a myth, but people sometimes say like you have to do steroids to be successful in something like strongman or powerlifting or any other sport that is strength based. Do you think that's true?
No, I do not think that's true at all. And that that myth, you know, you hear it often, especially in strength sports, bodybuilding, powerlifting. It's a choice. I know people, I'm obviously not going to mention names, but are just morally just don't believe in steroids, and they've won contests. They've been very successful. There's also divisions. There are people deadlifting insane amount of weights and they're in a drug tested
Hmm.
division. So that's just proven itself that it is possible.
Exactly. And I was going to say the same thing. I do know successful, strong women and men that have like achieved really great things naturally. Um, do I think maybe the biggest people in the sport that are like the famous ones are? Probably not. But like that doesn't mean you can't, but that's also like the genetically gifted and hardworking 0.0000001% of the world. Like you're never gonna, sorry, you weren't born 7 feet tall and 400 pounds, you know? But I definitely think you can achieve a high level of success. I've competed with many natural strong women who are awesome, and so I know it's possible. Um, and I think hopefully that, and we'll talk more of this future episode, but I hope that keeps people who are newer in the sport, even 3-4 years, just keep natural, because I don't think they've really reached their actual potential.
Yeah.
And they can achieve really, they can win a national show, natural for sure, 1,000%.
That's another negative thing about social media is you'll see influencers or people that just put out what they take, and so people think like, oh, I should do that, I should do that. I know that's just, it's bad information. Like Christy just said, I don't think you have any business even thinking about steroids or doing them until you've been lifting, I would say at least minimum 7, maybe even 10 years. That's my opinion. Again, this is just my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. So
Yeah. 1,000% agree. And we'll definitely talk more about that because I can get pretty passionate about this
yeah,
subject, which is crazy because our minds have changed. We've had an evolution. Like you said, you think they're like heroin. And then you were like, there was like kind of shock and acceptance of it in being the sports. And now that our competitive careers are mostly over, we kind of like are like,
yeah,
people, way too many people do them.
yeah. No,
But
I'll be
not
excited.
everyone. Yeah, like they shouldn't be doing them. Like they should like learn how to work hard first,
Yeah,
but and not
steroids
risk
are
their health for like and be crazy. But
steroids are
anyway.
definitely being abused, but we'll get into that in a later episode. So
Mm-hmm.
the next myth I want to go into is the first. I'm going to call it an excuse more than a myth. The first excuse I always hear is, well, I can't do that because I don't have time. I can't spend all day in the gym.
I know. I could.
So I could too. Let's first talk about, Chrissy, at this moment in time. I'm just curious, just so people can get a reference. How many days a week are you going to the gym? And when you're there, how long do your training sessions take?
So I go 4 days a week, and my training sessions are 2 hours. But I would say 30 minutes of that, 15 minutes of that's warming up, and 15 minutes is socializing. So an hour and a half of training 4 times a week is,
Okay.
and then I also do cardio in the morning 3 times a week for 35 minutes.
Okay.
But that's at home.
So including, my math isn't great, but including cardio and lifting, That's under 11 hours per week. Per week.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I would say, I mean, that's a lot for a normal, like for me, like I'm like still trying to be strong, I love lifting. Like I have the capacity to spend, I make my own schedule and stuff like that too. I think that I train probably like, I know it's hard for us to kind of gauge because we're always around friends who train like 2 hours plus every day or something, or we've had strongman event days that are like 5 hours, but I definitely don't think everyone needs to be training 2 hours a day. Uh,
No.
but I think like I train a higher end of probably what the normal person can, but people could definitely train an hour 3 to 4 times a week, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
For me, currently, I'm around the same as you. I go to the gym 4 days a week for 60 to, I would say my top is 2 hours. And that's just on a day that if I have the time and I want to stretch and do a little bit more for lower body to warm up appropriately. And then I walk every morning for anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, which is honestly more for mental clarity rather than the way I physically look, because even me doing that much, I have to bump up my calories. So, and I have a client, I want to use as an example. She is making awesome progress, gaining muscle, losing weight. And I only have her training 2 days a week, 60-minute sessions. So everyone, I don't care who you are, if you have time to listen to this podcast, if you have time to go on social media, there is a way to tailor. I'm not saying you can go to the gym for 2 days a week and be an Olympian or be number one in your sport, but you can get healthier, look better, and obtain a better physique. So,
Yeah, well, like we talked about before, it's like the best program is a program you can be consistent with, and if that's just 2 times a week, oh my gosh, like in a year, how many training sessions is that? A lot. I don't know, like a
yeah.
hundred. Don't don't fact check me. It's still a
Yeah, our
lot.
math isn't great. All right.
Uh,
How about the one that we've all heard before? I feel like it's like powerlifting, strongman versus bodybuilding when they get into the whole cardio burns muscle. I'm not going to do cardio. No. Like, did you
I
ever think that?
know. I've kind of thought that before. I hate admitting all this stuff. I kind of thought about that, like it was gonna impact your strength gains a lot. I don't think that anymore. I think that if you're recovering properly, actually refueling your body for the amount of work you're doing, and you're not like overdoing it also in how much volume you're doing in your strength workouts. And like, so obviously you're eating enough and all that stuff. Like, you aren't going to burn muscle. Cardio is probably good for you. You
Yeah.
should probably do
Yeah.
it.
Just like strength training, cardio is a tool. I mean, you should do it just for the overall cardiovascular benefits like heart health and such, but cardio actually kind of like opens everything up. So if you think about the body, it's like an in-depth ecosystem. When you're trying to shuttle nutrients and get that lactic acid moving, like cardio can be very beneficial to use. And there's different ways to look at it. This kind of leads me to another myth off of cardio. And I've looked at studies for it, and it doesn't show much discrepancy. So people are like, oh, you have to do cardio fasted. No, you can do cardio whenever best fits for you. I do believe that fasted, we don't all love cardio. I think if you do it fasted first thing in the morning, it's one less thing you have to think about throughout the day. So I think that's where it is a good thing. But by all means, if you go to the gym and lift and then you want to do your cardio after, that's fine. And like Christy said, it's all about duration and using it as a tool, not abusing it. Cardio will burn muscle if you are, maybe you're doing like 3 hours a day and not eating enough. Yeah, probably. But I don't think anyone, that's a select few that are doing that.
Yeah. And the same thing with impacting strength gains, like I used to think like I can't do too much cardio because, which you shouldn't do too much cardio, but can't do a lot of cardio because I don't want it to affect my squat workout and stuff like that. Like, no, maybe you should be running 5 miles, like on, a trail or something, where you're, there's a little bit more impact, a little bit more demand for recovery on your muscles. Like when you're prepping for a meet or doing a spin class that's really intense while you're prepping for a powerlifting meet, which I've done before. I'm an idiot. This is a long time ago. But there's times and places, and of course there are times where you should probably do it, something intense like a spin class or go on more of an intense hike or something like that. Or if you really want to run, like it's not going to hurt you. You just make sure it's in your program and it makes sense and you're able to recover from that. So and make sure that what you really care about, your real goal, which would be strength or building muscle, isn't impacted.
Yeah.
So,
I too have seen it. I'm not calling anyone out, not going to name names, but people have said like, well, if I do too much, it's going to impact how much I can lift. And, those are usually the people that do a set of 8 or 9 and they have to take 7 minutes in between just to recover, which is obviously not ideal. And you're not as strong if you can't perform X number of reps under X amount of time because you're so out of shape cardiovascularly, then that's a negative. So just another thing to think about. So make sure you do your moderate cardio.
Exactly. And I've been having my clients do a lot more cardio lately. It's probably because I'm on a cardio quick kick. But man, are they getting like better results and feeling better? And like, it's a different way to push yourself. Like, I had a client, it's a strongman client, and I'm just trying to make him faster during transitions and recover quicker. And he just like, I just realized like, it's okay if I'm out of breath. I can kind of keep pushing for like 60 seconds. I'm going to be okay. And like that's huge. Like you need that, like just that realization of like, yeah, it's not all about being strong. It's about being able to move. And also once you get out of maybe a sport like powerlifting or something, you do realize like, yeah, it'd be nice to not be out of breath all the time. Like that's not good.
I also have heard, I feel like in the past 2 or 3 years, people have been talking more about step count. 10 years ago, we never heard about that. I don't even know if smartwatches were around then, so maybe that's why. But there isn't like I feel like the most common myth is like you need to get 10,000 steps per day, which I'm talking about because that falls into the cardio realm. There's no set amount. There's obviously a difference between walking cardio, like steady state, versus like full out hit, like sprinting or something. But there's no set, like I will never tell everyone they have to do X number of steps. It's different on the person, depends on their lifestyle. I believe I read somewhere, again, this isn't me fact checking, but I believe I read that the average American gets about 3,000 steps, which I don't think is enough. I do think that you should push more for like that 10,000 or so. But even Christy and I, we've talked about this once, like 10,000 steps can be hard sometimes. Like you have to deliberately, like it's not just easy. It's not just going to happen unless, you have a type of job where you're on the floor walking around. But for like me and Christy, we have desk jobs. Like I have to make sure that I she goes for walks in the morning on her treadmill. I go for a walk outside. We have to make sure we're moving our body.
Yeah, in order for me to I get a little more than 10K now, but in order for me to get it, I do my treadmill walk in the morning. I walk the dogs in the morning. Then at lunch, I walk the dogs. And then at night, I walk the dogs.
Do you have a watch on you right now?
Yeah, right now I have 9,535.
Look at that.
So that's a lot. Yeah, but it's because I did my morning cardio this morning. Before I did my morning cardio, I used to just take a walk of my own outside. But now it just was getting too hot. So I've been doing it inside. But yeah, because I hate sitting around. It's good to be active. I like to be outside. It's just, it makes you feel more energized. I know you feel the same way where it's like, feel more energized and you just keep going. So I actually heard, my mom sent me this study, but who knows where the study came from. They're like, oh, it's not 10K steps a day. It's actually more like 7. I don't know. I don't know where they're getting these numbers from.
I think I saw that too.
I don't care if it's 10K or 7, but it's like, damn, you guys, look, if you track your steps, look at them. If they seem low, like add in a walk. Like for me, I know if I didn't do my cardio in the morning, I just did my dog walks, and I do so many steps in the gym too. If I do go to the gym, like I'm going to get close to 10K, between 8 and 10K. So like, I know that, and I'm like, okay, well, if I didn't do the extra dog walk, I know I need to add that in for me to get like my normal amount of activity. So just being aware of your activity throughout the day can make sure when you can check yourself, like, oh man, I've been a little bit lazy. Maybe I should take that walk after my lunch break.
Yeah. There's obviously a difference too. Like I had a client one time that I had to talk, like if she didn't hit 20K steps a day, she was mad at herself. And I'm like, nope, that is that's a whole different conversation, but it's like, just be active. Because even for me, like yesterday I only got 6K, which is low for me, but I was wearing equipment and I was going up a bunch of stairs. I did an activity for
Right.
9/11 yesterday. So it's like I was sweating and my
It
heart
was
rate was at like
hard.
170. So it's totally different, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So just wanted to mention
Yeah,
that.
and sometimes you just need to rest and lay down. Like there's been like certain weekends Gary and I are like, okay, well we hiked 60 miles and then we went on another hike the next weekend and I've been hitting 12K a day. Like let's just like forget the steps this weekend and just like chill, maybe take a dog walk. Like that's it. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you just need to just sit down. But so that's for
Yeah.
people like us or like your client who does 20K. It's like we all pick these numbers that we can some personality types will pick something to be obsessive about. And for some people it's steps. Some people it's carbs. Just how it
I
is.
feel like because of all the studies about steps, I feel like steps have almost turned into the whole calorie counting thing. So just be careful with it. Again, everything in moderation. So the next myth I feel like I'm always debunking, where people commonly think salt is bad. Do you hear that one a lot?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Like, isn't salt bad for you? I think it's getting a little bit better now because hydration drinks are on the rise. So people are like influencers are promoting the hydration drinks a little bit more, and so they're like at least like promoting like the positive effects of sodium and hydration. Because like before, when you would like drink a Gatorade, you just were like, oh, like I used to see the marketing like sports. I drink this, but now people are starting to understand maybe a little bit more behind
Yeah.
the science. What about
Yeah.
you?
So I feel like in our age range, we're educated, but it's people, again, to use my dad as an example. My parents are almost like 60. So I feel like people that got their educational fitness content in like the 60s and 70s, it's kind of outdated because people thought salt, sodium, leads to high cholesterol and other health issues.
Yeah, like
I
high
think when
blood
people,
pressure.
yeah, and blood pressure, but no, salt is an essential, component. It's part of your, just like, I forget the percentage, we're made up of so much of water, but salt is part of that. And if you're listening, you want to look out for salt that has iodine in it. So sea salt with iodine, super cheap, buy it for like 99 cents. That's going to aid, obviously hydration, helps with thyroid function, so many other things. But also for me, like, I live in Las Vegas, I sweat a lot, so I add just salt. I don't measure it. I just add a bunch to my water. And I notice on days if I forget, especially in the summer, like, I'll get a headache. I won't feel as good. Also salt draws, like we've all heard the term like pump. So when you're lifting weights and like purposely trying to achieve a pump, more salt is going to help that. It's going to draw more water and blood into the muscle itself. So
Yeah. On comp day, I was getting like a quarter teaspoon of salt in my drink after every event, to replenish. Just like a interesting personal story. And everyone's gonna think I'm a total weirdo if they already haven't already, because I'm like telling you all my childhood quirks. But when I was younger, I had like I always had so much anxiety. So I had really bad anxiety. And for some reason, like I always had a water bottle with me. It like helped calm me. I don't know why, but always drinking water. So much water. For a child, like just constantly drink water. So whenever I go to my grandparents' house, my grandpa would put salt in my water
huh.
because if you drink too much water, you can actually get hyponatremia and die. Not that he really thought I was going to die, but my grandpa actually studied hydration
Huh.
and like worked a little bit with Gatorade and like did a lot of studies on just the certain balance of like sodium, potassium, and everything that goes into hydration. So hydration is not all about just drinking water; it's also about just the balance of everything in your body. Because if you drink
Huh.
too much water, like let's say you are running a marathon, because he also ran marathons. If you run a marathon and you just like and you lose all your water in your sweat and you just drink water, like tons of water afterwards, and not replenishing everything else like electrolytes and your sodium and potassium, that's really bad. You can get very, very sick. You can even die. So, not saying everyone's going to die because they're just drinking water without salt. You know, we have so much salt in our foods. We have our hydration drinks. We have all that stuff. But just something to kind of goes to show that, of course, too much salt can be bad, but none can be very bad as well. So, knowing how that kind of stuff works is very important. Now, there's like, have you heard of Prime Energy or something? It's like the Prime drink. It's Logan Paul's hydration, like it's a hydration drink or something.
Is it the
Well,
stick?
apparently, no, I don't know, but I know that they
There's
have
so
bottles
much.
of them. But there's a controversy because it is a like promoting like as like kind of like a hydration drink, but they're like, it tastes so good because it's not salty. And they're like, well, why isn't it salty? Well, it barely has any sodium in it to preserve a better taste. Because, you know, those hydration drinks usually have a little saltier taste because they have salt in them to help you hydrate. So they're actually they have, I think, potassium in it, but they're missing the salt that's supposed to work along with that. So if you think you're hydrating yourself, you're definitely missing out. So the advertising is a little bit misleading. They're like, we taste better than the opponent. Well, it's like because you don't have salt in it,
Yeah.
which is
So
very interesting.
yeah. Just to add on to this, kind of like your grandpa said, so your body is smart. So if your body isn't getting something, it's going to seek out ways. So when I was young, I remember in middle school, I started carrying around like a canteen because I thought, I'm going to drink a lot of water. I'll be healthy. And I remember after school at track practice, like I was cramping up more than normal. And I remember my parents would make fun of me because I would crave pickles at night. Like I would drink pickle juice and I was craving it because my body was smart. I needed more salt. And then my coach one day told me, kind of like what your grandpa did, like, I think you're overhydrating a little bit. Obviously it wasn't to the point where I was going to die, but it was like affecting I was getting these like, we've all been running before and got like a patch and you're like, what is that cramp? And that's the cramp. It could be from lack of potassium. In my case, it was salt. So just a little side story. I guess me and Christy love to chug water. Maybe mine was an
I
anxiety thing
salt,
too.
and I salt everything. I just love salt, but but we also sweat a lot. We are athletes. We're outside a lot. Like, what goes in, like what comes out must go back in, and there's not much that goes out, then yeah, maybe you shouldn't have overly salt stuff. But for us, it's not really concern.
Okay. How about the next myth that Christy and I always get? Usually it's from those keyboard warriors, but it is something along the lines of like, you are going to hurt your back if you keep lifting like that, or
Hmm.
you will hurt your back. Or granted, we have both hurt our back in different ways, but Christy, let's start to kind of debunk why that is false.
Well, yeah, it's like, okay, well, you can also hurt your back tying your shoes. So, I mean, and I know a lot of people do it. I actually like know a lot of people who have torn their muscles outside the gym more than inside the gym. Um, right? There was a
Yeah.
guy at my gym who had picked up, I know it's not the back thing, but picked up his puppy and tore his bicep. There's another guy who splashed water in a pool and tore his bicep. Of course,
Yeah.
maybe it was a long time coming just because of things, but anyway, lifting heavy is not going to just inherently hurt your back.
Yeah.
Um, for me, the reason my back was hurt is I was just doing way too much. My volume and just intensity overall, like I pushed it in an ego lifting way of just hammering everything and doing all the things for
Mhm.
so long, and it caught up with me, and that's when I got injured, and then I kept lifting, so I kept the injury really fresh. But I'm not going to say, oh, it was a specific lift, or like, because like now I'm lifting heavy but I'm not hurting myself, so it's not necessarily like all lifting heavy is going to hurt you.
I read a study once, again, not sure how accurate it was, but it said the number one for in the corporate world, the number one reason people don't go to work or have sick days is because of low back injuries. And oftentimes, like outside of the lifting world, like Christy just said, someone was picking up their puppy. When I used to work in hospitals, I would hear people, throwing their back out, just same thing, doing everyday tasks like taking in the groceries or picking up a child or and I lived in the Northeast, and oftentimes people would hurt their back when they were shoveling. So you have to look at it like, well, if you did strength train correctly, and again, Christy and I are athletes. We're strong man athletes. The average person isn't lifting weird objects for their sport. So obviously there might be a little bit of more of a risk with us, but lifting, especially deadlifting is, in my opinion, the compound movement. Actually, no, this isn't an opinion. This is a fact. A deadlift uses the most muscles in your body. So when you're doing it, everything from like your biceps, your grip, your back, quads, calves, everything is engaged. So again, not something to avoid. There are smarter ways, like maybe you don't need to deadlift a car. Maybe you can deadlift a trap bar. So there's always ways around it.
Exactly. Yeah. It just has to, the training style has to fit like your ability. And hopefully you're working on your ability, but I'd rather be strong and strength train for life than be, 60 years old falling and breaking bones.
Yeah.
There's so many pros that outweigh the risks. There's risk in everything, but strengthening my bones, my joints, my tendons, building muscle, are just, and I enjoy it. So it's all worth the risk. And I don't think the risk was definitely not as big as the people on the internet like to say, like, oh, don't hurt yourself. Or I'm just like, you are so rude. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, just because you don't know how to, do a, I don't know, a stone load or something like that doesn't mean that, I'm like in danger. So any more than someone who's, maybe works at a fast food restaurant, has to pick up a box of equipment or something. I know people who've like hurt themselves, like moving like boxes at work like that, and been sidelined. So trying to avoid that just by being strong.
Yeah, I actually want to like kind of turn that myth around. And it's like, if you don't lift heavy, you will hurt your back. And I realize, so Christy and we both talk about how much we love lifting. I realize that not everyone loves lifting. Like some people just really don't like it. And I work with people that have hated lifting before. And I often use that. It's like, okay, well, you don't want to get to this age and be in a nursing home or hurt yourself and have someone have to take care of you. So it's like, think about the longevity of it. So I'm sure if you're listening to this, though, you like lifting too. So
Yeah,
just
you love lifting.
do your due diligence. That's my challenge for you if you listen to the whole thing, is try to encourage someone to lift today. But that's all we have for our top fitness myths for today. We'll debunk more in the future, and like I said, we're going to do a steroid episode and an injury specific episode. So we'll go into those a little bit more. Christy, anything else you want to add?
No, just keep on lifting and make sure if someone trolls you, you tell them, you try to do this.
Yeah.
You come back here when you can do this.
If you guys have any other myths that you've heard or maybe funny stories, feel free to leave it in the comments. Share this podcast episode with someone. Please share this one, because I feel like as women, men are often talking about fitness myths, but I haven't really seen any women talk about it. So that would mean a lot if you would share it. And we will talk to you guys again soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.